Hey there guys, in this video we're going to be going back to the sub-bosses of Dark Visions 26 and we're going to be doing some alternative clears. So let's go to the mage boss first, which is the one that gives people the most problems. So this boss, we're going to use the re-raise trick to allow us to use physical damage dealers like meteor units such as Exdeath. But you do got to kill the boss with either magical or evocation damage before you can use physical damage dealers, you know, like Exdeath, Cleome, Olive, etc. So this is the party we're going to be using. I'll show you the gear afterwards, but let's get in here and give a clear. So the boss is weak to fire or water, and it's a bird. Okay, so on turn 1, we're going to use Sage's Shifted LB to do a modifier buff for the Farega spell. So Shifted LB. We're going to use Aerith to just do her Shifted LB as well. That's going to be a stat buff as well as a fire amplify. We're going to use Louise to quadruple. We're going to put up the fire field with Firestarter. Now, we're not going to use her Magnus yet because we need to re-raise the enemy first, and that would remove the good break. The boss is currently 80% broken by the Obsidian Bracer, and that's all we really need to get the boss killed. So we're just going to do Firestarter. We're going to do Power Boost. I don't even need to do that, honestly. We're going to do Diverse Arsenal. That's going to be for Meteor for later. And then really, nothing else really matters. I guess Power Boost and Heavy Firepower, because why not? And then Ash is going to start in the base form, go to the shift form, and then that's going to give us auto cover. And then we're going to use a dual cast materia, and then just reflect on someone, and then bounce re-raise off of them. Now, if you don't have Ash, you can use pretty much anyone you want to do this, as long as they have the re-raise spell. Ash is convenient because she auto-covers magic. It makes turn 2 a little bit easier. And then we're going to go ahead and either kill the boss or deal some damage. If you don't kill the boss on turn 1, it's okay. So Vivi, we're actually not going to reflect with Vivi. We're just going to quad Farega, which has been modifier boosted by Sage. And then Exdeath with the Erinyes Ring is going to quad Farega as well. Now, I didn't bother to enhance my Farega, which means it's only a 20x modifier per cast. If you enhance it, it becomes a 72x modifier per cast. Not to mention the boost from Onion. But, you know, whatever. This is good enough. So we're going to go ahead and chain this up. This probably won't kill the boss because we're not using, you know, enhanced skills and all that. Well, it actually came pretty close. But again, we didn't kill. That's okay. So turn 1 is going to be an AoE wind attack. We are immune to the wind from resistance. Okay, so the boss on this turn is going to get a defense and spirit buff. Don't worry about that. We're not really worried. We're going to just reload our chainers, and we're going to also have Sage now join in with quadruple Farega. Again, I didn't enhance his because I don't really need it, but if you're coming up short on damage, you can enhance his Farega to +3. So we're going to chain the back row and kill the enemy. Don't use the front row yet. So we're going to go ahead and just chain this up and kill off the Dark Pegasus. Wait for this to finish. Now the boss will re-raise because we bounced it off to the boss. So now that the boss is re-raised, he no longer has that mitigation buff, etc. Now, if we had killed the boss on turn 1 and the boss had re-raised on turn 1, the boss would have done his defense and spirit buff last turn, so Ash would from an Esper use the Dispel ability on the boss right here. That would dispel the boss's buffs, and you could just guard your DPS units. That's if you kill the boss on turn 1. If you don't kill the boss on turn 1, you do it the way I'm doing it. You kill it on turn 2. You kill it, the boss re-raises. After the boss re-raises, make sure this is after the re-raise, we're going to use Aerith to Rod in Peril and Ardent Prayer for the Fire Imbue. And Louise is now going to use her 90 break on the boss. So this turn is an AoE magic wind attack and a single target light element magic attack. We're auto covering it with Ash, and she's wearing immunity gear. So there we go. Okay, now it is time to kill the boss. So we're going to use X-Death to Meteor. We're going to use Sage. We're going to just reload. We're going to just quad Farega again with Sage and Vivi. X-Death will Meteor. Louise is going to quad Ionic just to join the chain for the chain count score. Aerith will quad Flame Fang. And we don't really need Ashe, so she's not really going to do anything. So, or if you want to, you could like go the base form and chain as well, but we don't need all that. So we're going to go ahead and Meteor and just wait a moment to the chain to, or the Meteor to fall. Then go ahead and chain up our chainers. And the Meteor is going to do the real damage here. There we go. So we need 3.9 or better, and we did 5.3. You know, pretty decent overkill, and we're not using the Dazzling card. Keep that in mind. Anytime I show you like an alternative Meteor clear, it'll usually not involve limited stuff like the Dazzle card. But there it is. Perfect score on turn 3. No big deal. 4.6 on X-Death. As you can see, Vivi and Onion are kind of just here, not really doing a whole lot. But they are important to kill the boss on either turn 1 or turn 2. So let me show you the gear that we're using. So Ashe is on Carbuncle, which has the Reflect spell learned, and she's chosen because she auto-covers, and we can use her to cover. I didn't actually know what the boss does, so I kind of just went overboard with all the resistances. All you need is light and wind. All you need is light and wind. And the boss does do a 70 in peril, so after a buff, if you're using a buff, either 170 before or after a buff to wind and light element. And then I gave her dual cast, and she has the re-raise spell naturally. So if you don't have Ashe, you could just gear the party in resistances, use a resistance buff, and bounce the re-raise spell with a different unit on the Carbuncle Esper. Aerith is just using a little bit of wind resist. The boss does AoE wind damage on turn 1. You can either use double Mirage or gear your party for wind immunity or use a wind immunity buff. But the whole party has 100 wind resist. Other than that, kind of whatever. Literally whatever. Louise, same thing. 100 or better wind resist. Obsidian Bracer. And then there we go. Just, 100 or better wind resist. And then she's our breaker. Onion Knight in the shift form is technically geared for damage. His damage is terrible, but 100 or better wind resist and a little bit of bird killer. There's the gear we're using, just a whatever card. Vivi, same thing, double hand rod build, 100 or better wind resist. He caps bird killer naturally, which is pretty convenient. There we go. And then a decent card. And then lastly, X-Death is using a rod build. So 9600 magic, 4700 MP. We're using the practice session card. Obviously, if you have the Dazzling Demoness card, it's way better, but that's limited. Irine's Ring, and we use his natural Farega spell, which gets modifier boosted by Onion. And then there we go. And he's on the Carbuncle Esper, not Carbuncle, he's on the Tetra Esper for Bird Killer, as well as a little bit of not that. Is it actually water or wind resist we need? No, it's wind resist. Why am I using this? Did he not have wind resist? No, he does. Where's he getting the wind resist from? Does he have natural wind resist? I guess he does. I don't know. Whatever. It worked out. Okay, there you go. So that was the clear. Now let's pop over to the physical fight. Now the physical fight, we're not going to use a budget run for the physical fight. For this one, I just want to have a little bit of fun with it. So we're going to take a wind party to the fish fight. We're going to use Sky. I've never actually used the whole like Omega Sky with all the jump gear. So we're going to do that. This is not really intended to be a budget run or anything. I just want to have a little bit of fun with it. So we're going to take Sky to damage cap the fish, while we also use Freesia and, of course, Choo Choo as a 3-man perfect score for the fish. So let's get in here and give it a go. So on turn 1, we're going to use Sky. Once all the boss does all of the stuff. So we're going to use Sky to triple. We're going to break with Sharp Spear, Overcast, and Severe Squall for the jump modifier buff. Choo Choo will give us a resist buff with Calamity Border, and Freesia will give us a aquatic killer. Mermaid's Prayer and Mermaid's Protection. That's going to imbue Wind. It's going to Aqua Killer and stat buffer the party. So on turn 1, the boss does some water damage. And we're not really worried. Water and dark damage. Choo Choo is our provoker, like a boss. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and jump Sky by using her normal attack. And then we're going to just punch the boss for some weakness damage with Choo Choo and Frievia. This turn is again some water and dark damage. Not really worried about it. Okay, now it is time for Sky to drop. So we're going to use Choo Choo to Lightning Bolt Barrage with Dual Wield, and Friezia will do the same thing, Extreme Nova with Dual Wield. Now, I know Extreme Nova with Dual Wield is nearly impossible to chain. If you're unable to chain this, definitely add more units to the party. You don't have to do a flashy clear like I'm doing. But for the sake of the video, we're going to get the 100 count chain score with only 2 units. So they're going to build that chain, and then we're going to drop our Dragoon, and there should be our perfect score with only 3 units. Love it. Love it. 4.4. There we go. We needed 3.9. So Sky, I finally got all the Dragoon tools, and I never actually used it. So I figured, you know, let's use it at least once. So there it is. All the damage came from Sky, and I'll show you the gear in a second. But this was just more of a for fun clear, not really intended as a guide. But Sky is using all the Dragoon stuff. So Kane's Lance, Dragoon Helm, Berserker Dress Sphere, Kamari's Pendant, her own necklace, the Roundworm card, and her own intrinsic chain cap up, and then some Aqua Killer. And she had maxed out jump damage and 275 Aqua. And then Friezia is just dual wielding a Extreme Nova, and then a little bit of water resist because the boss does water damage. And then Choo Choo is our passive provoker with evasion, a little bit of water and dark resist, and then she does Calamity Border for the rest of it. And there we go. There was the clear. Okay, if you're still having problems with these fights, let me know in the comments, but there it is. See you next time.